Hello, everyone. It's Ryan again, and I'm looking forward to another um, Afterverse video with all of you. Today, we're talking about the Bible study we just did on thankfulness and gratitude. And once again, one of the things that I got out of it was how much I still have to learn, and that's a good sign. Remaining teachable is a good sign because I don't think we ever graduate from any of this stuff. Um, there's always more to learn. And as every day goes by, I learn more ways on how to be thankful for life, how to look for things to be thankful for, and how to be grateful. And it really got me thinking about some stuff in my life because it's a difficult topic to talk about, especially given how a lot of us interpret these things and how we see our lives. Many of us are, I think all of us at some point go through periods of times where we're really a victim, right? Or we're playing the victim, or we just think, man, my life is so bad, or why do bad things always happen, or why can't I catch a break? And we have a hard time feeling grateful or feeling thankful for the things that we believe we don't have. Especially given in the light of, like, let's say, we were successful in something and we had wonderful things at some point, and now we don't, right? Now we've lost it. We've lost a marriage. We've lost a job. We've lost houses, possessions. We had a fire, um, and lost everything. And we have a hard time being thankful for what we do have and finding gratitude in all those kind of hard moments. Um, but I have discovered in my life that even if it doesn't arrive right away, it does arrive. One of the great examples of that, of finding gratitude in something that is difficult, is my parents. The loss of my parents. Both my parents have passed, and every day of my life, I feel their absence. Every day of my life, there is some pain there. Every day of my life, I notice what's missing. But when I think about the things that both my mother and father gave me over the years and taught me over the years and conversations that we had, I find myself being full of gratitude and thankfulness um, for their example and their life. Even though they're gone, they're still teaching me today. Something that I understood that my mother shared with me in my 30s. I understood one way in my 30s, and in my 40s, I understand it another way. And now in my 50s, I understand it a little bit more. And so, even though my parents aren't here, they're still teaching me. And I notice that, and I feel thankful for that. Um, we kind of saw how thankfulness is kind of a feeling, but gratitude is an action. And how do I know I'm grateful about my parents? Because I pass on the lessons they taught me. I take the action of giving to others what they gave to me. I'm telling you right now about it. That's gratitude. When we're grateful, there's always an action that follows up, it seems. It becomes a way of life, right? Um, Thankfulness is kind of in the moment, and I feel that, like, when I think about my parents, and I think about their journey and what both of them overcame. I can look back at my life and look for all the deficits. I can look for all the things that my mother wasn't. I can look for all the things that my dad wasn't. I can look for all the times he wasn't there, or my mom didn't show enough love and acceptance, and I will find it. And that's the thing about seek and ye shall find. We find what we look for. But when I take a look at my parents' life from the standpoint of what they gave me. I'm grateful for everything I find that they gave me. And I share it with others. And I talk to my brother and sister about it sometimes in chat or in conversation. Um, and so things change, right? And even though I miss them dearly and my heart is broken, it's it becomes real clear that what I'm thankful for and what I'm grateful for isn't the loss of them, isn't the pain of loss of them. It is the gift that they gave me that they continue to give me, even though they're not here. I think we saw pretty clearly in all the scriptures in the Bible study that it wasn't the suffering, it wasn't the pain, it wasn't the sorrow that we are to, rejoice in, but in what comes afterwards, the release from it, uh, the education, the understanding, uh, the liberation from pain, the release from bondage. Those are the things that Christ gave us. He didn't give us the pain. He gave us an answer to it, a solution for it, a way out of it. Um, First and foremost, spiritual pain, emotional pain, and even physical pain. He healed people physically, right? Um, he set himself up pretty clearly as the one who restores and the one who heals. And that all he is doing is what his Father is doing. Therefore, not he or God, the Father, is the one who causes the problems in our life, but instead delivers us from those problems. And, there are times, depending on our perspective, we could think God's causing a problem. Just like I use the example of a child that wants to reach up and touch something that's going to hurt them if they touch it, right? Like touching a hot stove. And we stop them and they get upset. They think we're taking something from them when actually we're protecting them. There are times today, and I think all the days of my life, I will think that God is allowing something in my life or taking something from my life and I'll be upset about it. And I won't be grateful for it and I won't be thankful for it because I can't see at that moment that He's saving my life from something even worse. He's protecting me from something even worse. In my life, I have had tremendous amounts of examples where I was rescued and saved, where there have been flat out miracles, where I was rescued and saved, where things happened in my life that could not logically or physically be accounted for, yet it happened. It was a miracle. And you got to wonder if we can see miracles happen from time to time in our life. How many of us have been in a car accident that rolled 8 times and not a scratch on us? How many times did something take place in your life? The inches and seconds. You were away from disaster and somehow you weren't. Nothing bad happened. You came out of it. Chaos all around you. Or a moment where you could have been severely hurt and you weren't, and you go, wait a minute, how did that happen? It doesn't make any sense. I fell this far. I should have a scratch, a broken bone, something. And if we can see the times in our life where we have literally been saved by God for one reason or another, then we got to ask ourselves, how many times didn't we see? And here's the thing. First, to see that we were saved, we've got to look for where God saved us. If we look where God's taking from us, we'll find that. If we look where God is protecting us, we'll find that. There's great power in that line, seek and ye shall find. What we look for, we do find. because part of being a child of God is having the understanding and the rationale to be able to basically formulate our perception. And that is the whole purpose of choice between life and death. How healthy and unhealthy, good and evil, right and wrong, um, goodness, kindness, and villainy. However you want to look at it. A lot of people get hung up on words at times, and I can understand. Certain words have been abused in their life, and they don't like those words. But so long as we're comprehending and discussing the concept of something that we want and something that we don't want, right? Something favorable to our life, something unfavorable to our life. Well, life is favorable to my life. Death, not favorable to my life, even though there have been times in my life I have certainly wished for death, because the pain of living was too difficult, right? But the concept, in starting to see and starting to accept that Jesus Christ, and as he described it, his Father, our Father, he said over and over and over again, has never judged us. He said the Father has never judged us. He said he came to heal, to restore, to mend, to repair, and to repay. To pay for the things that went wrong. He took all the responsibility on himself for us. To the holy men and the Pharisees and stuff that were questioning him, who sought in their heart to have him killed, who wanted him to go away, who wanted to punish him, who wanted to mock him, who wanted to make an example of him, who wanted to argue with him. It was those, he said, you are not of my Father. You are not of my, you were of your father, and he was a liar from the beginning. Seeking the wrongs in our lives today, for me, is following the wrong father. There's going to be plenty of wrongs in my life. There are things there's things happen today that were just outstanding at how ridiculous another person's behavior and thoughtlessness was. I don't have to look for it, it happens. So I could sit here and think about who did what and why they didn't do it and all that other kind of stuff. Or I could seek what's good. And in the midst of that selfishness of somebody else, I got to see the person on the other end of that do something gracious and powerful and selfless and courageous, and walk through it even though they're in pain and even though they're hurting, and they were there for another human being even though they were literally suffering because that other person only cared about themselves. I got to see God in another person who acted in love regardless. There's a few other things in my life that have taken place. I've been a chronic insomniac for most of my life, ever since puberty, basically. I don't know what happened. I was a morning person. Around 12 years of age, just couldn't go to sleep. And I spent a great deal of time at one point lying in bed, and I made the decision that every night I'm just going to talk to God until I fall asleep. And sometimes it was 2 hours, and sometimes it was an hour. And I would just quietly talk to God in my head about the day, about whatever, right? And a great many things have taken place in that process. One of the things that I could share with you is that the first memory I ever had in life, and I had it for 49 years, as the first memory I could ever remember. And I was young enough to be still in some kind of a baby bassinet laying on the floor at church. And I heard this pastor pounding on the podium and screaming in this hall that was designed in such a way that it had massive reverb, right? It might be one of the reasons why I like reverb, because I would notice that in church, even though I was 1 years old. But my very first memory is kind of like waking up startled from a sleep because I was young, on the floor at church by my mom's feet, to this man screaming at how terrible the world was or the congregation was and sinners and blah, 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 blah. I don't remember what he said. And I don't even know if I knew what he was saying then, but I certainly knew it was bad because of the tone and the volume and the yelling and we don't need to know the language to know someone's upset. We don't need to know the language to know what a laugh is, right? And it scared I woke up startled and scared. And that was the first memory I had in life for 49 years. I could never remember anything before that. There was stuff after that when I was a little older. Family stuff and my mom cleaning the house and singing "Who Can Make the Sun Rise?" All these old tunes. Well, they weren't old then. uh, but that was my first memory, right? And one night, I was talking to God and I was complaining about something. About fear, I think, and about the anger in others. And I fell asleep and I started having a dream. And in this dream, I'm sitting in this valley. Well, I'm sitting on the top of a valley, right? Looking down. Valley goes down. There's a river down there. On the other side is a mountain. And there's just meadows on my side, kind of hilly, rolling things. And I'm all by myself in this area. And it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And I've had several dreams that start in this place. And I'm just sitting there and the grasses are kind of waving a little to the wind and it's peaceful and it's quiet. And a far off distance, I see this man starting to walk towards me. And he's kind of dressed like a Jedi in Star Wars. He's kind of got the whatever, and he's just slowly walking towards me. And I fell asleep angry with God, right? And he gets up to me and he's got long hair like I do, and he's like the coolest looking dude you'd ever see. I mean, as soon as you see him, you just want to talk to this guy, right? And so I didn't feel scared or anything else like that. Here's this guy coming. And he gets close to me and I stand up and he comes right face to face with me and he just puts his hands on my shoulders and he looks at me smiling and he goes, "How many times are you going to make me come get you? How many times are you going to make me come get you?" I fell asleep arguing at God, and I fell asleep in a bad place. And this man comes up and says, "How many times are you going to make me come get you?" And then another miracle happened. And suddenly I was laying on the floor of my house, at that house when I was a kid. And I looked over and I saw the couch and I saw the carpet and I saw the drapes and I saw all sorts of stuff. And I looked up and my brother, who's 3 years older than me, was looking down at me. And he was only about 3 years old. And he's smiling with the biggest smile you ever saw in your life. And I was given a new memory as my first memory. And I remembered the room, I remembered everything, I remembered all the details. And suddenly I was back in the valley, and the guy's there again. And this time we're both just sitting there, and he's sitting next to me, and he looks over and he goes, "You know, I gave you an older brother so you'd never be alone." And that was my dream. Later on, I called my brother and I told him about the dream that I had. And he said I described the living room to a T. And he said that was the day mom and dad brought you home from the hospital. You were just born, and they brought you in and they set you down on a blanket, in the living room, so that Rita and I could meet you. My sister. And Ray came over and was looking down at me, smiling at his new baby brother. And that was when I was 49 years old. That happened, that dream, which is a multiples of 7 for those of you 7 sevens, right? The bad first memory was taken away, and a new first memory was given to me, something that my brother himself confirmed to be true. My brother's got an outstanding memory about when we were kids, especially that young. It blows my mind the things he remembers. And he said I described the room, and he remembers that moment himself. You know, I've thought so much about that dream. How many times are you going to make me come get you? But he didn't say it meanly. He said it like, "Hey, man, you know, how many times you want to do this before you just like stay with us, you know?" And so you just hang out with the rest of the flock, instead of going off on a tangent in your own head about stuff that, I want justice. I want, while I'm attacking God. I have this wonderful dream. And I've had several dreams since then where I wake up in that meadow and I am met by this gentleman that looks like a Jedi Knight from Star Wars. But he's so cool. It's like my best friend sat down and just shared a minute with me. And in that place, I'm always alone, and then he comes there. I have learned that even when talking to God angry, God himself responds with loving kindness and jovialness. How many times you gonna make me come get you, dude? You know? And he reveals something. He unlocks a memory in my head. Because, obviously it's there in my subconscious. Obviously that event happened, in my life where I was brought home from the hospital. So that was the first day of life because apparently my mom was only in the hospital for 30 minutes, had me, and they brought me immediately home. I know I've known that story my whole life. So that was literally the first hour of my life. I got to see my brother looking down at me, smiling with the biggest grin you've ever. And I no longer have that memory of some self-righteous pastor beating on the podium talking about how everyone else is evil. Like he can't handle it, right? Seek and ye shall find. The study of thankfulness and gratitude has taught me once again That it is a choice I need to make. It's not about going, if I just had this, I would be thankful. If I just had this, I would be thankful. I know I'd feel that. We know that. Give me an ice cream cone, I'm going to be thankful, right? But I got stuck in this mentality that without it, I can't be thankful. That I need to acquire the thing to be thankful. Instead of learning and reading and understanding, which the scriptures illuminated, that being thankful is a choice we make. And if we make that choice, it will unlock secrets and hidden things in our own minds. It will reveal a world to us before our very eyes that we didn't even know existed. We will start to see emotional color in things that we had not perceived before. And if I can look back now in seeking it and see all the times in my life where I was literally saved, in my early 20s, there are so many times I should have died. The things I was doing to myself and the dangers I was putting myself in. And I can look back now and know without a shadow of a doubt, I was saved. And if I can see the times I was saved, how many times can I not see? How many times was I just walking out the door at a store and the clerk says something like, "Oh, hey, bye," right at the last second. And I stop and go, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, see you, bye." And that one little moment hesitation was all it took to avoid me getting into a deadly accident a block down the road. I can't see it. I can't see where I was saved from stuff that didn't happen because I was saved from it. I can only see the extraordinary stuff that can't be accounted for because I was present for it and saw the danger coming. And then it didn't happen. Right? And I got plenty of those stories too. But that's the thing. I can think about my past and find new feelings of thankfulness because I'm looking for them. When my sister was away to college, I used to cut out silly things out of magazines and whatnot and, send them to her, goofy stuff. And for long times in my life, I look back and I thought, oh, that was just so, what was I thinking? Rita probably thought I was stupid or something, right? Because that's what I was looking for. I was looking, did that make me look dumb? Right? Oh, that was just a silly, childish thing I did, right? But when I look for what was good in it, suddenly I have this great memory of me cutting this out and going, oh, Rita's going to laugh about this. And I have this memory of Rita calling on the phone from college and saying, I got your little book you made with the funnies and stuff. One of them I remember was a joke about a guy getting the wrong thing in a vending machine, right? And he was just standing there holding a bag of salted chicken lips. That's what it said, right? And I spent a lot of my life, thinking, trying to be cool, right? Trying to look cool. And I'm like, oh, that was so. Why did I send my sister this stupid stuff? Here's the truth. The truth is I enjoyed that stupid stuff when I was that age and whatnot. And I wanted to do something for my sister to make her smile. And today, in looking for where I can be thankful for those moments, because I really missed my sister when she went off to college. I remember what it felt like to make that little book thing I made for her. A couple of pages pasted on a piece of paper, or whatever it was. I don't even remember exactly what it looks like, but I remember how it felt to do. And how can you put a value on that? How can you put a value on that? I can sit here and look at all the mistakes I made in life, all the mistakes my sister made in life, all the mistakes my brother made in life, all the mistakes my father and mother made in life, and I can condemn us all. Or I could look for all the ways through the hard times of my life, which growing up was a hard time in a lot of ways. But I could look for those moments where I had a laugh with my dad. We did something in the garage. You know, my dad and I used to build furniture together because he liked to build furniture, and he would recruit Ray and I to help him. And one time I remember he was cutting some wood on the bandsaw or table saw, and I said, you know, my dad was really smart, right? And uh, and he always liked to one up what you were saying. And I said, you know, Dad, I've been doing this long enough now that I can tell what kind of wood we cut by the sawdust. You know, whether it was oak or pine or whatever. And my dad goes, oh yeah? He goes, I can tell you how long the board was. It's like, which, you know, you can't tell how long a board was by the sawdust. And I can remember those. And I can honor those moments. And these things come easily when we make the decision to look where we can be thankful and grateful in our lives. And like I said, the gratitude part is the foundation of us where we wish to give back. I remember coming in the house one time. All of us kids had gardens. Mom and dad made us grow gardens, and I grew carrots, right? It's one of the things I grew. And mom didn't allow us to eat anything without permission, right? And so here I am. I'm 5 years old, 6 years old, and I got some carrots growing, and I wanted to eat some carrots. And I grabbed some carrots, and you know, a 5 year old can't hide nothing, right? So I'm trying to sneak in the house holding carrots behind my back, and my mom's like, "What do you got there? What are you hiding?" Nothing. Here I'm lying to my mom. Nothing. And she knows I'm lying, so she's not getting happy about this, right? Because we were a religious household, and you know, children don't lie, and that's could be a spanking type thing, right? Depending on how bad it got, right? And eventually she gets it out of me, and I bring my hand around and I show her it's carrots. Now she's probably thinking I'm hiding candy bars, sugar, cookies, something, right? And I'm hiding carrots. And she's like, I didn't notice it then. I couldn't understand what the expression on her face was, but I know it now. And she was trying not to laugh. And she's like, okay, next time just don't try to hide it from me. You can go have your carrots, right? And you know, I was devastated, right? I'm like, Mom caught me. And I can only imagine that later on that night, her and Dad had a laugh about it when, you know, when they talked about it. Yeah, guess what Ryan did today? When we make the decision to have an attitude of gratitude, it awakens and unlocks our subconscious and unlocks our mind. And we can start seeing the fruit on trees we didn't even know they were trees, let alone fruit. And that's why I want to continue to establish gratitude as a way of life and build the house of thankfulness on top of that foundation. I want to be thankful to God, not only for the things that I see, but for the things that I don't see. What does it say about faith? What did Christ say? Blessed are those, right, who believe without seeing. And it is a blessing to know and believe inside that I have been saved many times. I have been given gifts many times that I was never aware of at all. Nor maybe will I ever be, but I know they happened. I know they happened because there are times I was aware. And I know how the dynamics of life on earth exists. I know how fragile things are, how quickly we can pass or something can happen. And sufficient for the day is the day's evil, right? I think is the saying. So there's plenty of it. Just in a day is enough, right? But also in that day are miracles I'm not aware of. There's a saying some people have is that coincidences are just miracles where God chose to remain anonymous, right? We're thinking about an old buddy of ours or something, and suddenly we run into him at the store, right? Coincidence. I was just thinking about you. He goes, I was just thinking about you. Or we're thinking about somebody and the phone rings and it's them. They're texting. Hey man, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm like, I was just thinking about you. You know, that nothing is left to chance, that there are no mistakes, that when a coincidence happens, it's actually God doing something positive in the lives of both of us that are experiencing that coincidence. And, oftentimes we just go, that's interesting. And we move on and, with whatever, hey, so how you been? Blah, blah, blah. But really a miracle took place. So I try to conclude each day considering what I'm grateful for. What did I give back today of what was given to me? What was I thankful for? Did I say to my wife when she brought me a towel when I needed one, thank you? Did I express thankfulness? Was I living in it today or did I have to work at it? There are days we got to work at it. There are days we live in it. And there are days that it's a struggle. We're angry, we're upset, things are going bad, we can't find it. But that is where we remember God. And we remember the things God did for us in the past. And it'll help us to reestablish the ability to seek gratitude, to seek where we're thankful, to seek, and we will see what we can be thankful for and what we can be grateful for. I am thankful and grateful for things today that I spent a great deal of my life being angry and resentful at. And the pain of those things is still pain. I'm not thankful for the pain. I'm not grateful for the pain and the theft and the abuse and the harms that either I committed or someone else committed. I am grateful today that they have ceased. and that I have a way to heal from them, and that others have a way to heal from them, and that it was God who brought the answer to us. There is no need for the kingdom of heaven where there is no tears that are shed and no sorrow, no death, and there's no need for that if we're supposed to enjoy suffering and be grateful for suffering. Well, then, there should be a need for that too, right? God came to take those things away, to comfort us in those moments, because we will have them while we're here. And He can turn every single one of those things into an asset. Today, I get to share my stories of life with a great many people. I get to hear other people's stories of life. And I would have never done that if I just stayed angry and resentful at some of the pastors and ministers that I met growing up. But other pastors and ministers were willing to help me when I was angry and could not reconcile my anger with God. One of them is Pastor Brent. I would be an outsider to his religion, to his form of religion. And yet, when I said I needed help, he invited me in and said, "Come to my office, let's talk, let's start working on this." I wasn't a congregant. It couldn't have been that, or so I thought. Because of his type of ministry or his brand of religion. But when I asked him about it, I said, "I'm not a member of your church. I can't even say I'm, what you are." He said, "First and foremost, my job is to be a servant of Christ and to carry His message to everyone who seeks, no matter what." And that man gained my trust immediately because I knew it didn't matter who I was or who I wasn't. What mattered is I asked for help in restoring my relationship to God. And this man was willing to do that for me, regardless how it looked to him, for him to have a person like me in his office and in his church. And we are friends to this day. I am very grateful for what I have seen in life. And I'm grateful that I don't have to ever live in the ways that I lived before if I don't want to. I don't ever have to be the man I used to be if I don't want to. Because it's not about how I perfect myself. It's about the fact that God is perfect, the Holy Spirit is perfect, and Jesus Christ is perfect. And they will flow that perfection through me simply if I am willing to practice the principles that Christ taught us. To love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And to rely on God rather than to rely on self. And if we do those things, all the doors open up to us in such a way that we can see a universe and a world and a kingdom before our eyes that we had absolutely no idea was there. Because we cannot see it with our physical eyes. And that is why self-reliance fails us. We cannot feel it, we cannot experience it, we don't know anything everlasting unto ourselves. But the relationship with God, for me, has set me on an adventure that I don't ever want to give up. And I don't ever want to stop listening to your adventure. I am thankful and I am grateful. Not for the pain I went through, but that I went through it and came out the other side of it and was given restoration for anything I was willing to bring before God and to my fellows and say, I need help. Because God gave me the comfort I sought and the answers I sought. And now I can share that with others in gratitude that there is a way out of hell and agony and misery. And that way is God. However we understand God. That way is love. That way is life. That way is anything that grows, anything that edifies, anything that enhances, anything that accepts, anything that builds, anything that creates, anything that hopes, anything that dreams, anything that desires peace is from God. And all those things in each and every one of us is God in us that we ourselves agree with already. I want peace. God wants me to have peace. I'm in agreement with God about something. So therefore, every single one of us can start right where we are and continue to grow in gratitude and thankfulness for the lives we've been given, no matter how difficult at times they have been or may be right now. For those who are going through things right now that are beyond terrible, I truly pray that there are those about you that are there for you, that stand with you, that help you, that support you, that guide you. They carry the message of God's love and support to you so that this will pass and you can one day use your experience to help another. Thank you so much for letting me share. I love all of you, and it's been, I know I've been a little slow tonight, but I've been very reflective about this topic. I think it means a lot to all of us. And I think there's another big awakening for each and every single one of us that continue to learn and study about these two simple principles that are interchangeable and the same in so many levels, but also have weight and depth of their own. I think they're the key that unlocks a new door for all of us every day. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.